If you were one of the few lucky souls who was able to grab a PS5, then good for you because I still don't have one. However, my friend does, and he graciously allowed me to borrow it for a while so I could play some games. So, what did I choose to play? Miles Morales? Demon Souls? Nope. I chose this weird roguelike thing called Returnal, and I was not really expecting much from it, and I thought it would kind of just be a decent little game. But goddamn am I a stupid chimpanzee for thinking that, because Returnal is an absolute fucking banger. Returnal is a third-person bullet hell roguelike game set on the mysterious planet Atropos. You play as Celine, a deep space scout who crash lands and finds herself lost on this ancient world. Being a roguelike game, the core mechanic is, well, dying and restarting. Every time you die, you return to the start and have to replay the game. And like all other roguelikes, the game is procedural, and no two runs will be exactly alike, with different environments, enemies, weapons, and items spawning each time. It's obviously not going to be wildly different on repeat runs, but it is enough to keep things fresh and keep you guessing when entering new rooms, especially with the addition of the malignant items and parasites. Malignant items are infected chests or pickups that have a chance to do nothing and also have a chance to give you a random negative malfunction. These malfunctions range from minor annoyances like obolites disappear 1 second faster to absolute shitfests like take damage when picking up items. Parasites, on the other hand, give you one negative and one positive effect, and they allow you to see what both effects will be. I think both of these systems are a solid risk-reward feature that helps keep the game tense and engaging, and it can definitely impact your decision-making. If your health bar is low, do you risk picking up the malignant health, or do you wait and try to tough it out for later? Success is not dependent upon this RNG, but there is a decent amount of it, and I think it mixes things up well and makes it more tense when you get a really good run going, especially when you know death will be a big progress reset, and these runs can last for hours depending on how you play, and venturing too far down a side path can lead to your untimely demise. But while dying initially feels like a huge loss, you do have some overall elements that track in the form of weapon proficiency and attainable gear that unlocks the ability to skip biomes or traverse previous areas in new ways. But at the end of the day, none of that really matters if the core gameplay itself doesn't compel you to continue. Thankfully, Returnal's combat is absolutely phenomenal. The gunplay is super slick, the controls are tight, and pretty much all the weapons are viable. Enemies will relentlessly swarm you, laser traps and environmental hazards will keep you on your toes, and the boss battles offer an incredible spectacle to finish out each biome. The amount of projectiles and particle effects on screen can get completely insane, and with the fear of resetting upon death, it creates a heart-pounding thrill ride that I haven't experienced in quite a while. This is all made even more immersive by the fantastic use of the DualSense controller's vibration and haptic feedback. Every step taken, every bullet fired, and every hit absorbed can all be felt through the amazingly detailed vibration in the PS5's DualSense, and it makes things even more engaging. My favorite feature, however, is how the triggers work for your alt fire. See, when aiming normally, you hold the left trigger down partway until you feel resistance. But if you press it down all the way, that readies your alt fire mode. It's a really cool use of the controller, and it's a solid way to implement a secondary firing mechanic. And I know it's kind of hard to explain just how special the DualSense is to those who haven't used it, but if you have a PS5, you definitely know what I mean. This thing is legit. Returnal also offers a good variety of enemies, ranging from these weird root-like beings to these dickhead kamikaze drones and these giant tentacle monstrosities. They're all wonderfully weird and really fun to fight, especially the bosses. Each one has their own unique attack patterns, and learning how to manage each enemy type is half the battle. Though I will say, I think the armor aspect was a bit underused, as there was only really like one enemy that had any form of real armor built into their design. Not a big deal, but I think it would have been nice to see that concept expanded upon a little bit more. Now, the procedural levels and swarms of enemies can seem like a lot to manage at first, but the more you play, the more patterns you learn, the better you get, and soon you'll find yourself flying through the air, evading projectiles with ease. Or you'll die 200 times, as the difficulty curve seems to affect certain people differently, and it has been a clear point of contention regarding this game. Personally, I certainly found it challenging, but not that brutal, and I only ended with 13 deaths. And in all honesty, I actually think some of the bosses could stand to be a bit harder, as the swarms of elites gave me significantly more trouble than the bosses did. Now, don't get me wrong, all the boss fights are incredibly fun spectacles, but I think there is a slight issue with the difficulty balancing towards the end of the game, because I kinda got my ass handed to me by the elites in the final biome, but then I cruised right on by the final boss. However, I know that many won't be able to say the same, and will have a lot harder time with this game than I did. I also understand that the feeling of losing a bit of progress may sound really unsavory to some, but for me, I just think it works extremely well because it makes things so much more tense and stressful, and has produced some of my favorite gaming moments in a long time. I will never forget making my way to the boss of Biome 3 at 4 AM, sweating my ass off and scraping by on health for the past 3 hours before I made it to the boss and barely beat him. I was shaking as I set the controller down to watch the cutscene, and I needed a solid 5 minutes to get my heart rate back to normal. The whole game is an incredible thrill ride that feels really satisfying to complete, and if you're willing to embrace the grind a bit, I think you'll have a great time with it. Aside from the minor issues I mentioned above, I think the gameplay is sensational. As far as the story is concerned, it's very vague, and there's not a whole lot to go off of, but what we have is interesting. It's a supernatural tale about why Celine is trapped in this cycle, and is told through fractured and potentially untrustworthy memories of Celine herself. Audio logs and occasional dialogue are the main means of storytelling when exploring the different biomes, but there are some heavier story moments that are told in these weird, PT-esque first-person house scenes. They are certainly a bit creepy, and they're a nice way to break up the rest of the game. Their inclusion also helps reduce the pain of losing progress, because each new death offers new narrative breadcrumbs to follow. I always enjoyed finding the house on repeat runs because I knew that it would be another chance to expand upon the mystery. As a whole, I'd say the story is pretty good, and I was satisfied with the ending until I got the secret ending, and at that point, I think it kinda muddies the waters a bit more than I would like, and that's really my only real issue with the story in general. It's just a bit too obtuse. Now, unlike other games where it feels like the narrative is just so buried or convoluted that it's clear the devs had no actual plan or idea for what the hell they were doing, Returnal does feel like there's an answer here somewhere. I just think it's a bit too hidden, and it only would have benefited from being less vague. Still, it is thoroughly engaging, and I think that definitely counts for something, especially for a roguelike. Alright, I gotta say, for as much as I love the combat, I think the art and design are what really surprised me the most. Clearly inspired by the works of H.R. Giger and Buczynski, Housemarque has crafted this incredible sci-fi world that feels as haunting as it is gorgeous, and the second, third, and sixth biomes are some of my favorite locations in recent gaming memory. Despite the fact that these levels are procedural, the design is so damn good that they're immediately memorable even when having to replay entirely new versions of them. I love seeing the mixture of organic body horror elements with the mechanized equipment and technology. It's just a really engaging game world that always made me want to keep exploring. As mentioned earlier, the particle effects on screen are insane, and the day-glow projectiles and enemies light up the environments in a really captivating way. I can't stress it enough, the amount of shit on screen at any given time is pretty ridiculous, and the game is all the better for it. The music is also fantastic, with this droning, wailing ambience floating in and out during exploration, and some nice high-octane tracks to push the pace during fights. The game also features the classic song Don't Fear the Reaper in more than one scenario, and I think it's a great inclusion that really fits the vibe of the game. I'd also be remiss not to talk about the superb sound design that Returnal has, making great use of the PS5's enhanced 3D audio. Simply put, the world feels alive around you. The plants flow in the wind, enemies shriek and holler in your ears, the projectiles and pickups have satisfying clicks, crunches, and pops, and your controller makes noise to alert you to things. It's just top-tier stuff. You can really orient yourself in battle just with the sounds of enemies, and there were several times where I was able to dodge an attack from behind solely on the audio cues. That is great sound design. If I had one complaint, however, it would be the performance, because while the visuals are stunning, all of that on-screen action does come at an unfortunate cost. For the most part, this game is a solid 60 FPS, which feels really smooth, but when things start to get hectic, the frame rate can drop to as low as 40 sometimes. It's not too bad, but you can definitely feel it when it hits, and it's an unfortunate thing to see, especially since this is running on next-gen hardware. However, given just how detailed the environments, enemies, and particle effects are, this really is a minor issue for me, and overall the presentation of this game is exceptional. And aside from the performance hitches, it does feel next-gen in my opinion. Okay, so I'd like to take this time to address two of the bigger issues that people seem to have with the game: the lack of a save system and the price point. As for the save system, it is accurate to say that the game doesn't really have one, and that if you fully close the application, your run will be reset to one of two checkpoints depending on how far you are in the game. Not being able to save is very common with roguelikes, but people have a bigger issue with this one because it won't autosave if you switch games mid-run, and you need to put your console into rest mode to hold your progress, which also means you kind of have to be bound to playing this game until you beat it. That being said, those complaints are kind of strange to me because isn't that always how roguelikes work? Now, I haven't played that many, but in both Binding of Isaac and Risk of Rain 2, closing the game results in death. There's no autosave feature, and I didn't hear anybody complain about it for both of those overwhelmingly positive rated games. Maybe because this is a bigger AAA release, it's gotten more attention, but I'm not sure. Because to my knowledge, this is just how roguelikes usually work, and the game tells you exactly that when you start. So I don't have a problem with it, but be forewarned if you are someone who likes to swap between games a lot. The other part of the saving issue is that some people have reported bugs and crashes, which obviously is not great when there isn't a save feature. Now, I can only speak for myself, but in my 33 plus hours of playing, I had 0 crashes, a very few minor graphical bugs, and one bug that made an achievement not pop correctly. So maybe I'm lucky, but I've actually had no significant issues with the game. I'm just putting it out there so y'all know about it, but it didn't happen to me, so I have nothing to complain about here. After that, though, comes the issue of price. So, as this is a next-gen exclusive game, it is being sold for $70. But is it really worth the price of... Yes, the game is worth $70. It's fucking awesome, okay? It feels next-gen, it has some great next-gen features, and I found it to be an incredibly fun and satisfying experience. And to be honest, I'm kind of sick of hearing this complaint, because if you're so vehemently opposed to paying $70, you probably weren't even going to buy it to begin with, so silence the whining, wait for a sale, and stop spamming this nonsense complaint on my twitter.com. Okay, I think I've spent enough time in this video praising the game, so I'm just gonna cut to the chase. I love Returnal. I had an amazing experience with it, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone interested. It's not without a few hiccups, but this stands head and shoulders above everything else I've played so far this year, and as the first PS5 exclusive I've played, they're off to a great start in this generation as well. Alright guys, thanks for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to leave a like. Let me know what you think about the video or the game in the comments below. Stay tuned for more updates on my game. I know it's been forever. Trust me, I want to get it out too. It's kind of out of my hands at the moment, but we will have more to talk about soon. Thanks for standing by. I'm going to try to get some more gaming reviews out and some more other content, working on a bunch of different things. So hopefully I have more to share soon. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.